What's up, nerds and geeks? My name is OMG, WTF, LOL, FTW, BRB. Welcome back to more Total Extreme Wrestling 2016. We are playing as the WWF in the year 2001, booking the invasion angle, and tonight we'll be running Survivor Series. You know, in the real invasion angle, nerds and geeks, this is actually when the angle ended, was that Survivor Series. They did a typical Survivor Series match where I think it was like Rock, Taker, Kane, Jericho, and I don't really remember it, to be honest, off the top of my head. And it was against, I think Big Show was on there too, because he wasn't, so I think it was like Rock, Taker, Kane, Show, and Jericho versus Austin, Angle, Booker T, RVD, and Shane McMahon. It was, out of everybody on there, the only WCW star was Booker T, really, so it's kind of a sham. But, the only question I think on everybody's mind is tonight's Survivor Series going to be the end of the invasion angle as well? Because we might not be doing some typical Survivor Series schmoz, but we are doing the War Games. And if Team WWF pulls out the victory, Team WCW is done. Or not just Team WCW, I should say. No teams, just WCW in general is done. They're donezo, out of here. Shane McMahon signs over the bills, everything to Vince McMahon, and Vince can do whatever he wants with the company, pretty much. But, of course, if they win, they stay alive and they get to be in the Rumble. And with the attack on Test on Sunday Night Heat, as we all saw, at least I hope we all saw, if you didn't watch it, Sunday Night Heat, Test got attacked. He's out again, guys. Sucks, and we don't have a replacement as of yet. Either way, though, who knows? With the replacement in there, maybe tonight could be good for WCW. I've rambled on for far too long, pretty much, to hype up this pay-per-view. Let's just click yes and run the pay-per-view. Wrong. We're not running the pay-per-view yet here, nerds and geeks, because we got a couple pre-show matches, as per usual. First, to start off the night, we have a terrible pre-show match where Big Boss Man and Perry Saturn go over Elix Skipper and Yang in 5 minutes 21 seconds when Boss Man defeats Skipper with the Bubba Slam, giving them a 54 C- here. Not that bad of a match, to be completely honest here. Elix Skipper and Yang I teamed up because they actually have a good friendship with each other, so why not? Yay for friendship. Of course, we already know about Saturn and Boss Man's chemistry. That's why they're teaming, to be honest. And tonight, both pulling off a 60 in the in-ring department, as Yang with a 38 to Elix Skipper's 33. So, seems like Yang is the superior out of the two of these guys. We then go to the main event of the pre-show, Nerds and Geeks, in a Cruiserweight Championship title bout, because even though we just saw it on Heat, technically, we got to get it in again. 65 solid C rating here, and a pre-show bout that had decent wrestling, but not much way in Heat. Billy Kidman going over Dean Malenko in 10 minutes and 16 seconds with the Shooting Star Press, making his third defense of the Cruiserweight Championship. Just wanted to take a drink before we get to the actual start of the Survivor Series. Let's try not to sound like Daffy Duck when we talk. Billy Kidman with a 64, only 1 point behind Dean Malenko's 65, so he's improving, and he's also improving in technical. Kidman's looking good. So let's start off the night, Nerds and Geeks, as we get through the whole Survivor Series video package to get to our first match of the night, which gets us a solid B rating here with an 81. Great way to start off the show, and a bout that had good wrestling and a decent reaction from the crowd. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Rhino, mentor and protege, going over Kanyon and Hugh Morris in a hard-fought, back-and-forth battle that they were so close to getting, but just weren't able to do it. After 12 minutes and 46 seconds, Rhino going over Kanyon, not with the pile driver, but with a gore, not a P-gore, but a gore. So the way I'd imagine this happening is Kanyon counters the Stone Cold Stunner, and he pushes Austin off him and into like the ropes, But, Rhino sneaks like that blind tag, tagging his shoulder. So he gets the tag, but Canyon, of course, doesn't see it. And Austin bounces off the ropes into, like, the flatliner. Like, Canyon grabs him and quickly hits him with the flatliner. But before he can even, like, go to cover Austin for the pin, even though it wouldn't have counted because he wasn't tagged, he turns around and gets the gore from Rhino, who is technically the legal man now, pinning him for the 1-2-3, and getting them their first title defense with the Tag Team Championship. So Rhino and Austin make their first defense. Austin, of course, carrying this match in terms of the in-ring performance. That doesn't surprise me. Hugh Morris apparently was the weak link. Again, doesn't surprise me. He was struggling to keep up with everyone else's in-ring performance. But taking a little bit of a peek here, 65, I mean, that's not too bad. Either way, this match got off to got the show off to a strong start, which I was hoping it would. I expected it did. I mean, we start off with Stone Cold. You got a Rhino with an 80, good on him. Austin with a 100. Hugh Morris with a 65, and Canyon with a 76. Also, Rhino and Raven did a fusion from like Dragon Ball Z. Fusion, ha! And formed Raven. Either way, Rhino is improving in performance. As we move on to a backstage segment that gets a 100 A-star rating, nerds and geeks. We're backstage, we're in Mr. McMahon's office. Vince, he's pacing back and forth. Him and the dead man. Taker, of course, the team captain of Team WWF, not WCW. They're trying to figure out who's going to replace Test tonight. And the War Games, excuse me. And that's when Chris Jericho walks in and he says, Mr. McMahon, dead man, I came right away when I heard. Typical WCW, always looking for the easy way out. But let me tell you, Mr. McMahon, we are not going to let you down tonight. We're going to embarrass WCW in their own game. Ain't that right, dead man? And then Taker just kind of looks at him like all like confused and stuff, and he says, the hell are you talking about? You ain't on the team, and you sure as hell ain't Test's replacement. And the Jericho's like, what? You've got to be kidding me. There's really no other option. I mean, who could quite possibly be a better replacement than Y2J Chris Jericho, baby? And then that's when Vince, steps in and says, Taker, I've got to agree with Chris on this one. We don't really have a lot of time, and we got to make his decision quick. And then Taker goes, oh, I agree. It just won't be Chris Jericho. You already had your chance, and you lost to RVD. And Team WWF don't need no losers on their team. And then that's when Jericho, kind of insulted, steps back and says, loser? You know what, dead man? I don't want to be on your team of losers anyway. In fact, I'm going to prove you both wrong and everyone else. Because tonight Chris Jericho has some big plans. And I promise you that after tonight, everyone will be talking about me. And that's when he leaves the office. And even though I bet a lot of you thought Jericho was the favorite and was going to replace him, and originally he was. Looks like Taker ain't having it. He straight up says, you know what, you're a loser. You lost to RVD. You lost your chance in this match. You're not getting in. It's not happening. We don't want any losers. You already lost once. And Jericho took exception to that. Now apparently he's going to do something big. Hopefully it doesn't cost Team WWF their match. We had a locker room incident as well. Ron Simmons, the hardcore champion, at least for now. His title is on the line tonight. In the hardcore turmoil, by the way. He had a little bit of heat with the locker room. And notice how I spelled heat, by the way, there, guys. The little things. He had heat with the locker room for his selfish attitude. We gave him a little bit of a slap on the wrist, but nothing happened, which I honestly didn't expect it. But you know what? Some people are selfish. I can't help it. What do you want me to do about it? This got the crowd hotter. People are into the show right now. As we move on to the next match, which, speaking of hardcore turmoil, it's not hardcore turmoil. I lied to you guys. I forgot. We get to a solid C rating here with a 64 rating, a Nintendo 64 rating here. And About That had no. Why do you do this to me, game? And About That had subpar wrestling and little heat to it. Lita going over Molly Holly to defend her WWF Women's Championship in 8 minutes, 22 seconds after a pinfall. Not a submission, no matter what this game says. And, yeah, that's that. So Lita defending it over against Molly despite all the attacks and all the trash. Lita still defending her title with a 59 in-ring performance. Molly not too far behind with a 46. What am I talking about? That's pretty far behind. It's like 14 points or some shit. I don't know. I don't want to do all the math in my head. And apparently it lost them heat, but that's okay. As we then move on to our next segment, which apparently is the Hardcore Battle Royale, nerds and geeks, or not Battle Royale, but the Hardcore Gauntlet, which, of course, starts with one man and goes on. And it's going to start with Ron Simmons, because he is the Hardcore Champion. I didn't really plan this out, per se, but, wow, I gave Big Boss Man and Perry Saturn 2 matches tonight. Good for me. Maybe it starts with Sabu, and then works its way to, someone like Funaki, someone quick, and then, Hardcore Holly, then Big Boss Man, then Al Snow, then Perry Saturn, eventually leading to Rikishi, and then maybe Jeff Hardy, who puts up the strongest competition until finally the returning Bradshaw returns, nerds and geeks, and he and Farouk go at it until Bradshaw beats his former tag team partner to capture the Hardcore Championship for his second time. So in a bout that had decent wrestling, but not much weighing heat, Bradshaw wins the Hardcore Gauntlet, not Battle Royale, in 14 minutes, 33 seconds, and apparently the other members of the Final Four were Ron Simmons, Jeff Hardy, and Rikishi, which I guess I was right when I said Rikishi was before that. So Rikishi gets eliminated, and then Jeff Hardy goes last, not last, but comes out and does this whole thing. And then I'd like to imagine maybe Mick Foley comes out in between and announces that we have a late entry, which is Bradshaw, who then comes out and gets the win. Of course, Ron Simmons with the most eliminations because, well, he starts in the beginning and eliminated everybody. So Bradshaw won the Hardcore Championship. Al Snow is improving in both Rumble and Technical. Sabu is improving in performance. And Perry Saturn's improving in Technical and performance. No complaints, really. 75 B- as well. That's not too bad. And Jeff Hardy got in the match, which is good because I felt bad booking Matt, but not Jeff. Really? I didn't put any angles in between these. That's a little weird. As we go on to the next match, which gets a solid 77B here, nerds and geeks. In a decent match, Christian going over Edge and Chuck Palumbo. So the underdog in this match ends up winning it after 12 minutes and 45 seconds. No. Why does the game insist on doing that? You think it would automatically just go to pinfall. How many people win by submission? Christian defeats Edge by pinfall after interference by Chris Jericho. Now, why would Chris Jericho interfere there, nerds and geeks? He said he was going to make an impact, but is this really his impact? Huh. Either way, though, Christian defending his WCW United States Championship for the first time against two big superstars as his former tag team partner and brother Edge and Chuck Palumbo, one of the rising stars over on WCW. Of course, Stacy Keibler doing some good work ringside. Got the crowd hotter as well. Edge with an 81, so he had the superior in-ring performance. Christian with the 75, so he was second, and Chuck Palumbo in last place, third, with a 70. Also, Chucky is improving in performance skills. As we then move on to the next segment, which again is a match, so I guess I didn't put any angles in between these things, which to me is kind of weird, but wow! Holy shit, did this match do good! I mean, I'm going to assume it did this good because we're in Canada and it's Lance Storm, but holy shit! You know what's interesting is Lance Storm beat Matt Hardy for the European, aka Canadian Championship, and they got like a C rating. This jumped the gun. I think this might be one of our best matches we've ever done, to be honest. With an 83 B+ rating, nerds and geeks. It's definitely Lance and Matt Hardy's best match. And a decent match here. Decent. Come on. Let's be generous. Lance Storm going over Matt Hardy in 9 minutes, 50 seconds with the Canadian Maple Leaf. I believe that might be the sharpshooter, in fact. Submission hold, making Matt Hardy tap out and making his 12th defense of the WCW Canadian Championship. Lance Storm with an in-ring performance of an 80, Matt Hardy with a 70, 10 points in between them. Definitely gaining some heat here and going well beyond my expectations. Good on you guys. Good on you. I'm proud of you both tonight. Good job. As we then go to a backstage segment in 87B+ here. We have Chris Jericho. He's walking He's walking towards the ring, or towards the entryway, I should say, about to leave to the ring. And Christian catches up to him, the United States champion, and he says, "Hey, Chris, hold up. Before you go out there and do whatever it is you actually plan on doing, I've got to ask you, what the hell was that? I mean, not that I'm not appreciative, but why?" Jericho responds, that Christian was the start of the future. I'm not the oldest guy in the locker room, and hell, I'm honestly not that much older than you. But you know what, Christian? I see a lot of a young Chris Jericho in you, and now that you're branching out into the singles division, I want to help you. With all the talk about proteges, with Flair having Benoit and Austin having Rhino, hell, there's even a rumor going around that Taker has a protege. I was thinking, maybe not a protege type relationship, but maybe I take you under my wing and lead you to the top. What do you think about that? And then Christian he's kind of stunned, and he goes, You do that for me? I'm honored, Chris. I don't know what to say. And then Jericho just says, just say yes. And Christian responds, yeah, totally. I'll totally be your protege. There's one other thing I actually want to ask you, though. What exactly are you going out there for? And then Jericho says, let's just say Chris Jericho is going to have the whole world buzzing after tonight. And I guess we finally figured out why Chris Jericho helped Christian. It looks like he's following the footsteps of the likes of Austin and Flair and Taker for some reason, I guess, too. And picking up a protege. Also, it looks like the fans are happy with this as well. They're like, yeah, I'm not against this. As we then move into a A-Star 100 segment, hell yes, as Chris Jericho's music hits and he begins to make his way down to the ring. Of course, the color commentary team are trying to contemplate what exactly he's coming out here for. And then Jericho gets in the ring and he says, Ontario! How the hell you doing tonight? Me? Yeah, I'm not doing too great. You see, not only was I not scheduled to compete tonight, but even when Team WWF has an open slot, I'm still denied my rightful spot on the team. And worst of all, apparently I'm a loser. Me, Chris Jericho, a loser. Can you believe that? But you know what? That's okay. Everyone can think I'm a loser, and then everyone can watch Chris Jericho prove them wrong. And that starts tonight. Because you see, not only did I invest in the future of Chris Jericho by gaining me a protege, but tonight, I'm calling out WCW's big dog. Because despite wanting WCW to lose tonight, I just don't see it happening. The Dead Man is a horrible team captain. I mean, look at his team. A bunch of unproven commodities and his loser brother. And as we heard on NyQuil this week, Shane McMahon has spent all his allowance money on Goldberg. And you know what, Goldberg? Everyone brags about your impressive, undefeated record. But I say it ended well before you were tased to defeat. 'Cause you see, no Soulberg, you forfeited your match against me. You were so afraid of Chris Jericho that you never even showed up for a match. And you forfeited your streak. Except no one ever talks about that. And when they do, they say the match was never supposed to happen. But I called you out, and you never showed. And guess what? I'm calling you out again. And this time, either way, I'm going to prove that you're just a sham. Whether you show up this time or not, it doesn't matter. Show up and get embarrassed by Chris Jericho, or don't and show everyone that the big bad Goldberg is afraid of Y2J. And then he throws the mic down, exits the ring, and everyone is shocked because not only has Jericho pretty much said that, yeah, you know what, I know I'm supposed to be a Team WF guy, but I'm saying they're losing tonight, and I'm calling you out, Goldberg, because if Shane McMahon really did bring you back, I'm next, pretty much, says, I'm next. No one else before me. I'm cutting in line. That's a hell of a way to start the feud, too. Look at that. 100 start off the feud? Hell yeah. As we move into the next segment, which gets an 84B+, our first World Championship match of the night, Nerds and Geeks. 84B+ video package for the Angle Booker T feud. Pretty much just recapping, maybe showing the United States Championship win. Definitely talking up the fact that Angle has his number. So on and so forth. Maybe even, recapping that Angle used to be on WCW for a short time. I'm somehow tied up in a knot here. I don't know how. I'm trying to plug my laptop charger in, but it's stuck in between my headset cord. It was a little awkward there, but I figured it out, Nerds and Geeks. Figured you guys should know that. So let's jump into this match, Nerds and Geeks. That gets an 87B+ rating here, and a superb match. Kurt Angle going over Booker T in 20 minutes, 21 seconds, with an ankle lock submission, making Booker T tap out, truly proving he has his number, and defeating Booker T for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Repeating history, he beat him for the U.S. title, and now he beat him for the WCW World title. WWF has WCW World Championship, and it is Kurt Angle. Oh, it's true. It's damn true. Unfortunately, Booker T was visibly tiring towards the end. Come on, Book, get that stamina up there, dude. They get the crowd buzzing. I mean, it was supposed to steal the show, although an 87B+, that's kind of disappointing. I was hoping for an A here, guys. Either way, Angle with an 88, Booker with an 89, so only 1 point of a difference between them, and Kurt Angle is the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Booker T is improving in technical. All in all, a good match. And I think I wanted to do a celebrating segment there, but it wasn't going to work out because I needed more time for other angles. Either way, we go to a 58C-, which that's actually not bad. I'm happy with that rating for, this crazy little House of Fun type of match with Tommy Dreamer's rating and all that, especially being injured. Either way, we go to a bout that had subpar wrestling and little heat to it, nerds and geeks. Raven going over Tommy Dreamer in 7 minutes, 47 seconds after interference from Daphne. And I don't know if you guys know who Daphne is, nerds and geeks, but you'll be finding that out in just a moment here. Of course, Tommy Dreamer, I believe, has like the flu or some shit like that, and apparently, it worked. He worked through a big toll here tonight. That flu was really working on him, nerds and geeks. But Daphne also debuted her weirdo gimmick and got a rating of very good. Raven with a 69 and Tommy Dreamer with a 46. So I'd imagine just kind of being like a big schmozz, weapons all around. Just EC dub, and then, Tommy's looking like he's getting the victory. He's beating down on Raven with like a kendo stick or something. That's when Daphne comes in and starts beating Dreamer down with something. I don't know, maybe a kendo stick, or she's just beating him down with a weapon, leading to the distraction to Raven to hit him with a Raven effect on a chair that's already unfolded and all that. Getting the victory, 1, 2, 3, Raven beats his rival. You guys get where this is going. And we can go ahead and officially complete Raven's turn into a heel. Got above average on his cult leader gimmick, and he's officially a heel now. We then move on to the next segment, which I'm surprised as a 70C+. I thought it might do worse, but you're not seeing me complaining. So in case you didn't know who Daphne was, that's Daphne. She's a WCW women's wrestler, and I guess if that's what you want to call her. She used to manage Crowbar and David Flair, I believe. She's actually a pretty good wrestler. She's wrestled for TNA a lot of the times. If you don't know Daphne, search her up. She's like pretty much Rosemary before Rosemary was Rosemary. Either way, the match is over, and Raven and his new follower, Daphne, are standing over a fallen Tommy Dreamer, of course, posing for the crowd. The new girl, Daphne, she's laughing at Tommy Dreamer, screaming at the fallen Dreamer, and Raven's looking like he's going to do more damage to him. And Beulah McGillicuddy, Tommy Dreamer's fiance, future wife, she gets in the ring, she's crawling, she's worried about her, fiance, she's sobbing, begging Raven, she's begging Daphne, leave Tommy alone, hasn't he had enough? Yada, 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 stuff like that. And Raven just smiles. He whispers something in Daphne's ear. A huge smile takes over Daphne's face, and she grabs Beulah by her hair. She forces her up to her feet, and then just plants her face first in the mat with the Raven effect as well, laying her right next to Tommy Dreamer. And Raven and Daphne leave the ring, leaving both Tommy and Beulah just laying in the ring with a heap of weapons all around them and stuff. So it looks like Raven has found himself a new follower, nerds and geeks, and her name is Daphne. There was also supposed to be another debut here tonight, but unfortunately they worked for another company, so we gotta wait and, till tomorrow or some other time when, I use Raven again for them to debut. It sucks, but now I gotta think of a whole new debut for this character. Either way, Tommy Dreamer's getting better at his gimmick, so I can't complain there, and it gained heat for the feud. As we move on to our next segment, which gets us a solid A rating here, nerds and geeks, with a 92. We're backstage, we're in Team WWF's locker room. Taker, he's standing in front of, what's left of Team WWF, of course, and he begins to give them a speech. I'm sure you guys, a lot of you guys asked me to do speeches for one, but I was planning on doing it. They were some of the best parts about Invasion, seeing that, the teams had to give them speech like these little, hype them up, make sure we go in there and we go to war. So either way, Taker stands up in front of them and he says, all right, look, I know things aren't looking good for us. We're going to a match that none of us have ever been in. And at the moment, we're down one, man. But this is exactly what WCW wants. They want us to think that we've already lost. Why do you think those damn Steiners attack Test? Because they're afraid. Don't let people let you think just because that you're young or you're inexperienced that you've already lost. Because these old men are sitting in there afraid of you. And this McMahon, he's assured me that he'll find us a replacement partner or be out there himself. So tonight isn't just about keeping the invaders out of the Rumble. It isn't just about getting revenge for a fallen company or for yourself. It's about ending a damn war that should have ended a long time ago. Tonight, WCW may know about war games, but they're stepping in the ring. Oh shit, wrong one. They're stepping in the ring with the dead man, and WCW don't know crap about the Hell Games. Now let's go out there and make these sons of bitches rest in peace. And I know my buddy Chris might be mad at me because I didn't let him write the angles, but I need to just get these episodes up. It's been a while since I've actually uploaded some too, so I needed to just get it up. So of course Kane looked good in this. Undertaker came across well. All in all, good segment. As we move on to our next segment, another hype video package here, hyping up the Rock versus DDP feud, highlighting their feud from, when Page called Rock out to where Rock beat Page, DDP beat him, so on and so forth. Just, you know what I'm going on. Solid A rating here with a 92 as we move into our match, which gets an 88 B+ rating here in an exceptional match, nerds and geeks. The Rock going over Diamond Dallas Page in 18 minutes, 11 seconds by pinfall with a rock bottom, making his second defense of the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. So DDP and The Rock go back and forth. Many, teases, false finishes, so on and so forth. But Rock finally hits the rock bottom, and I guess he just beats him with the rock bottom. I'd like to imagine maybe the people's elbow puts him down, but whatever, too. You do your own thing. Great match here between the two. Of course, we already knew they had good chemistry. Rock with an in-ring performance of a 100. DDP with an 86. Just a good match in general with them guys. And as we move into our next segment to get an 86 B+ here, the match is over. Rock, of course, is posing for the crowd, doing the whole posing, showing off, yada, yada, yada. And he turns around, he sees DDP standing in the middle of the ring. He's holding, he's hurt. Rock's music stops, and the two People's Champions, they have a stare down. They exchange a few unheard words, say something to him, but we have no idea what they said. And that's when Diamond Dallas Page, he extends his hand to The Rock. And Rock, of course, he's a little hesitant here, nerds and geeks. He looks at the hand. He isn't sure whether he wants to shake his hand because, well, we've seen in the past, he shook DDP's hand. Page pulls him in for a diamond cutter, usually lays him out. But, Rock feels like a little bit of electricity in the air, and he decides to go against his better judgment, and he grabs DDP's hand, and he shakes it. And DDP pulls off probably the biggest surprise yet here, nerds and geeks. And he pulls The Rock in, and instead of hitting him with the diamond cutter, he hugs The Rock. The Rock and DDP, two enemies, two People's Champions for two different companies at war, hug in the middle of the ring. Page whispers something in The Rock's ear. We don't know what he said, but I'm assuming, of course, he thanks him for a good match, something like that, whatever. He then raises Rock's hand in victory before leaving the ring and allowing the WWF champion to finish celebrating with the people's, or with his people, I guess. I don't know what you would call that. Either way, Rock was fantastic, and Diamond Dallas Page came across well, and this officially turns DDP into a good guy. So Diamond Dallas Page is officially a face now. As we move into our next segment here, Nerds and Geeks, with a solid C rating and a 65 here, in a poor match, unfortunately. Power Plant going over Los Guerreros in 8 minutes, 21 seconds, after Mark Jindrak defeats Chavo Guerrero Jr. with the Power Plant bomb after Lord Steven Regal interfered. So Power Plant winning the WCW World Tag Team titles, picking up their first Tag Team Championships as a team. Of course, Chavo was the weak link in this match, but, that's to be expected. So as we knew ahead of, in the past, Los Guerreros, they have horrible chemistry, which sucks because they don't, but that's just sometimes how it happens. And even though the mod person probably should have already had these guys have great chemistry, he didn't do that, and I could have always cheated it in, but I don't want to cheat too much, So there are some things I'll let slide, whereas some things I'm like, no, I want that to happen. Like, I need that to happen. But either way, this was something where I figured I'll just rewrite it, and I already had a rewrite in my head, so we'll just go through it. As Power Plant capturing the WCW Tag Team titles, ending the Los Guerreros reign a little shorter than I wanted to, but at least Power Plant gets a well-deserved Tag Team title reign, I feel. Of course, as we already know, the Guerreros just don't work together, which is a shame. Regal doing some good work. Oh, by the way I'd imagine the match ending is Regal maybe knocking Guerrero out with a power of the punch, teaching them to cheat, and then leading to a power plant bomb to Chavo to earn themselves the tag team championships. And the road agent note says this right here. This was to calm the crowd. I forget what our wild brawl match for the night was. I want to say it was the hardcore title match, but I'm not sure. And the storytelling match was the DDP Rock match. And so this was to calm the crowd because we're getting ready for our main event. And hopefully, as I didn't mention before, but I actually am a little worried about the main event because War Games is a unique match, and I'm just a little worried about it. I'll just be honest with you guys. Either way, before we go into before we go into War Games, we got to talk about how Mark Jindrak's improving in performance skills. We also need to talk about how Chavo Guerrero had an in-ring performance of a 47, the worst in the match, but that was to be expected. Sean Stasiak then follows up with a 58 to Mark Jindrak's 60, and then Eddie Guerrero's 66. We move into our next segment, which gets an 88 B+ rating here, Nerds and Geeks. Similar to the WWF Hype Speech, we now have a WCW Hype Speech, as Ric Flair and the rest of the team WCW are in the locker room. He stands up to give a speech, and he says, "All right, boys, before we go out there, I just want to say some things." But that's when Benoit steps up, and he goes, "It's okay, Rick. I'll take it from here." But that's when the Giant stands up, and he says, "Chris, sit your ass down and let the man talk before I make it so WCW has to find another replacement for you tonight. For you tonight, pretty much." And then Benoit, he goes to say something back to the Giant, but that's when both Scott and Rick Steiner stand up behind the Giant, pretty much cracking their knuckles. And Chris sees where this is going. He's seeing that, 3 of Team WCW, 3 big men are staring at him like he's lunch. So he goes and sits back down and lets Ric Flair continue his speech, and then Flair says, "All right, boys, come on now. We got to work together tonight because we got more to lose. Sure, if we win, we get the Rumble. And take it from me, that Rumble could be the best thing that happened to your career. If you win it. But if we lose tonight, then not only will we be out of the Rumble, we'll be out of a job. And not to mention that the end of the legacy that will end the legacy of WCW. Think of all the history that comes out of WCW. We can't let Vince McMahon and the WWF take that away. We can't let them erase all that history. Tonight, we need to beat the WWF in their own game. Tonight, we need to keep WCW alive. Now let's go out there and show these WWF guys just how dangerous War Games can be. Everyone put your hands in. WCW on 3. 1, 2, 3. And then they all shout, WCW. And then Ric Flair's like, whoa, damn it. That's what I'm talking about. Let's go kick some ass. And we get ready for the War Games match. And I'm not exactly sure if I have a segment in between these two, so I'm going to actually transition to something else because War Games is a unique match type here, similar to something like the Royal Rumble. And with matches like that, I'm actually going to fully kind of, not fully, but write out the match in more of an detailed manner, and I should say. That way, I have ideas in my head pretty much, and either way, this did get the crowd hotter. Flair came across well, and so did Giant. So I'm going to take a drink, and we're going to pull up the notepad here and get started for the War Games match, and then once I finish pretty much explaining the whole match to you guys and all that, we'll go and actually see the actual rating for the match. By the way, to any of you guys who don't know anything about War Games or the rules, allow me to quickly explain them. So War Games is 2 rings, Nerds and Geeks, right side by side with each other with a huge steel cage around it. And it starts with 1 member of each team in the ring. And there's a coin toss before the show begins. Usually the heels win. I'm going to spoil it for you guys right now. The heels won and mine too. It's usually just, it's for the heat. And after 5 minutes of the first, the first 2 members of the first members of the team fight. After 5 minutes go on, the first member enters the match, leading into a 2-on-1 for the next 2 minutes until another member from the other team comes out, leading into a 2-on-2, and then 2 minutes pass, 3-on-2, 3-on-3, so on and so forth until all 5 or how many members of the team are in the ring, and that's when officially War Games begins. Because until all the members of both teams are in the ring, the match doesn't begin. It can't end. All members have to be in the ring before the match can end, and then the only way the match can win or end is by knockout or submission. I mean, there have been, exceptions to this rule, but I'm going to go by the actual rule, which you either have to knock your opponent out or make them tap out, and it only has to be one. It's not elimination. Once one person is knocked out or one person taps out, the match is over, and that team wins War Games. So that is the explanation of War Games. Let us jump into it as we pull up our notepad here, Nerds and Geeks, and we got our, as you see, Team WF, Kane, Taker, RVD, Albert, question marks, and then we got Ric Flair, Benoit, Giant, and the Steiner brothers. So, of course, the first two members first two entrants are Team WF's team captain, The Undertaker, and the Giant from Team WCW. And, of course, after 5 minutes pass, of course, we see Taker and Giant just brawl throughout it, just basic, fight. The first superstar to come out, and it's Team WCW, because, like I said earlier, spoiler report, they won the match, the coin toss, whatever. And they got first draw, and out comes Rick Steiner of the Steiner brothers. So we start off, the two WCW stars, they take turns beating down The Undertaker. Taker's trying to fight back, of course, but it's 2-on-1 right now. 2 minutes pass finally, and out comes Team WS first member, or second member, I guess, ECW's Rob Van Dam, who enters like a bat out of hell, taken to the sky, going on the turnbuckle and landing a diving kick to take Steiner down. Giant, of course, looks to ground the high flyer as he grabs RVD by the throat, looking to maybe choke slam him. Taker, though, was there to save the day and just starts battling with the Giant as we now have, even grounds here. WWF managed to hold the advantage as RVD handles Rick Steiner over there, and Taker and Giant brawl until another 2 minutes pass. And out comes the next WCW star, the air quotations team captain, as he likes to believe himself, the former U.S. and Intercontinental Champion and protege to Ric Flair now. Chris Benoit joins the match, and he immediately goes after Rob Van Dam, looking for his much desired revenge after his loss to the ECW star a couple weeks back on Nitro. He enters, he grabs RVD from behind while RVD's battling Steiner in the corner. He grabs him from behind and hits him with repeated German suplexes. Would that be suplexi? I don't really know what the plural word to suplexes would be. So he's hit him with, those repeated German suplexes, vintage Taker move, or not Taker, Benoit move. Taker then goes to aid RVD, but Benoit sees him coming. He ducks the grab or strike or whatever Taker's looking for, quickly goes behind him, and then he grabs the current Intercontinental Champion, similar to like he did to RVD, and then starts to hit him with the repeated German suplexi. It could be suplexes, Nerds and Geeks. There's multiple ways to say this word, I think. Either way, he hits the Intercontinental Champion with repeated Germans, and then he then begins to order the other members of Team WCW around, telling Giant and Rick, all right, let's do this. And even though Giant and Rick are kind of hesitant because, well, even though Benoit believes he's a team captain, they know he's full of shit. But they do notice that, we're a team, and we got to work together, and they do indeed do that as they begin to use that 3-on-2 advantage to their advantage, pretty much, and beat down on Team WF until the next 2 minutes pass, and out comes the other member of the Brothers of Destruction, Kane. And he enters the match, and he begins to brawl with the Giant. Of course, they have their history with each other. And without Giant to help keep Taker grounded, Taker's able to get back up, and he brawls with both Rick and Benoit. And he's battling Benoit because they got their little feud going on. He's slamming him into the steel. And he then, goes over and helps Kane out with the Giant, helping him, double teaming with them. And they eventually pick the Giant up for a double choke slam before breaking RVD out of the Steiner device, which Rick Steiner has on him, and then hitting Rick Steiner with a double choke slam as well. Then we have a 3-on-3 advantage here, or not 3-on-3 advantage, but a 3-on-3 brawl. Team WS brawling with Team WCW. We got Taker and Benoit, Kane and Giant, RVD and Steiner all brawling for the next 2 minutes. And then out comes the real team captain of WCW, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, as he sneaks his way into the match, living up to his dirtiest player in the game name, as it looks like Chris Benoit is about to be hit with a double chokeslam as well. Flair sneaks behind the BOD and lands a low blow to both Kane and The Undertaker as they put down Benoit to grab their jewels pretty much. And mentor and protege to begin to team up on Taker and Undertaker. And just a pretty much not a classic tag team match, but we got a tag team situation here as Flair and Benoit are teaming up to battle Kane and Taker. And then it's Rick and Giant pretty much taking turns just tossing RVD around, because now they had the advantage. And RVD's tiny compared to them, so they're just tossing him around like a fly for the next 2 minutes, while we have Mentor and Protege battle the Brothers of Destruction, and the two big boys battling RVD for the next 2 minutes. And then out comes the next WWF star, who is the A in TNA. Albert comes out, and he's pissed, nerds and geeks. Albert's looking for his revenge, and he enters the steel cage and immediately goes after Rick Steiner, the man who took out his tag team partner, Test. Albert and Rick brawl, and Albert bounces him off the ropes and then plants him down with that sit-out powerbomb. Meanwhile, we have RVD managing to use his speed against a tired Giant because, well, let's be honest here, nerds and geeks, the Giant has been in this match since the beginning. He started it with The Undertaker, so RVD's using his speed to his advantage there and battling the Giant and tiring him out even more. And we still have, Mentor and Protege and the Brothers of Destruction battling here, just kind of, exchanging blows and advantage. No real advantage there. So we got Albert beating down on Steiner because he's pissed at him. RVD and Big Show, trying to catch him pretty much, or Giant, excuse me. And we got the two tag teams going at it for the next 2 minutes until finally WCW's final member comes out. Scott Steiner completing it out. We only have one more person, and it's the mystery partner. If Vince McMahon was able to find someone, it could be Vince for all we know. Scott Steiner rushes to the aid of his brother, looking to save him, as he now begins to double team Albert with Rick here. The Steiners are beating up on Albert, looking to take him out the same way they took out Test. They're targeting his legs, looking to pretty much make him handicapped practically. But before they can do really any real damage, RVD comes to the save, taking Rick down momentarily. But he then pays for it because while he did take Rick down, Scott Steiner not only is right there, still standing up, but he's fresh. And RVD's not going to be able to outrun Scott as easily because Scott, like I said, he's a fresh guy right now. He hasn't been in there too long. And Scott's able to get his hands on RVD, and he tosses him in the cage over and over and over again, just grabbing him by his head and tossing him, grabbing him by his head and tossing him in the cage before helping his brother get back up. And they notice Ric Flair and Benoit are having a little bit of troubles with their Brothers of Destruction. So they go and help, and it's a 4-on-2 advantage, and the Steiners aren't small guys, so the Steiners are definitely, Scott himself is making, a difference here, as they already took down Albert, they already took down RVD, and now they're targeting the Brothers of Destruction. And we also got Giant involved in this, who, is taking his break. He's getting a much-needed, breather, as we got Team WF just getting beaten down for the next 2 minutes, and then we have Team WF's final member, who was and I'd imagine at this point, maybe this is what JR is supposed to be like, well, here comes the final member of Team WF. It was originally supposed to be Albert's tag team partner, Test, but he had to be replaced after being taken out when he arrived during Sunday Night Heat. Did Mr. McMahon find anyone else, or is he going to come out himself? Well, nerds and geeks, we hear the music hit over the loudspeakers, and it's time to play the game. And out comes, it's Triple H, it's Stephanie McMahon. Somehow, someway, Mr. McMahon has managed to get his son-in-law the game, Triple H, to join Team WWF. And as JR said there, somehow, someway, Mr. McMahon has talked his son-in-law, Triple H, despite Triple H and Stephanie saying they don't want anything to do with this war. In fact, they just want to pick the bones afterwards. Triple H has, in fact, agreed to join Team WWF and replace Test here and save Mr. McMahon for entering the War Games. So Triple H enters the match, and immediately Chris Benoit goes after Triple H. And by the way, I'm not necessarily sure that the game was Triple H's theme by this time, but he did take a little bit of break, so I'd imagine maybe at this time he came back to the game as his song because we have started having him use that. Either way, not Test. Benoit goes after him, and Triple H takes him down with some hard strikes. We have a little bit of a brawl between them, but Triple H takes him down. Rick Steiner, he takes down Benoit with the hard strikes, and then he runs at Rick Steiner, taking him down with that running high knee that he's famous for before ducking a clothesline from Scott, bouncing off the ropes. Of course, Scott looking to maybe just hit him with a back body drop as he has his head down. Stupid of him, though, because Triple H then hits him with that, that knee little face buster he always hits them with as well. And taking Scott down for a moment. Giant then grabs the game by the hair. So he grabs him by the hair. But Triple H, of course, he keeps scratching my ears, so I didn't want to keep talking, so you heard my voice go away. But either way, he grabs him by the hair. Triple H, though, he has no problem cheating back as he turns around, because he's got long hair. He turns around and he rakes the Giant's eyes, and Giant, of course, lets go, because his eyes just got raked, of course. And then Triple H straight up just kicks him in the nuts, nerds and geeks. No fucks given. Kicks him in the nuts before hitting a pedigree on the, on the Giant, putting him down, and then he gets up, and there he is. Ric Flair, Triple H. They have their stare down. The two of them exchange a few words. What's up, man? Blah, blah, blah. They haven't. It's a big moment, and mostly a big moment because we know in the future, in real life, Triple H and Ric Flair have some sort of, a mentor-protege relationship. Either way, they begin to brawl back and forth. We got Flair and Triple H going back and forth with each other. The match now has a descendant in chaos. We have all the members inside War Games. Officially, War Games has begun, nerds and geeks. So the match is going on. Finally, we have everyone exhausted as we get towards the final moments of this match. But they're still going, nerds and geeks. It's pride and honor right now for their companies. Eventually, the Giant, who isn't a cruiserweight, climbs to the top of the rope, the top turnbuckle, nerds and geeks. But he pays for it because Kane is right there, lands that vintage, that patented, whatever you want to call it, that Kane uppercut that only he knows how to do, that is so beautiful. Hits him with the uppercut, and, Giant, he falls down because, well, that's just what you do when you get hit on the corner for some reason. He falls down, and then Kane climbs up, and he goes to, attempt to hit a superplex on the Giant from the top of the turnbuckle. He's having a hard time, though, because this is the Giant, and you have to lift up all that weight yourself. That's when The Undertaker, Kane's tag team partner and brother, climbs up to the top turnbuckle as well and joins his brother, as the Brothers of Destruction now are both attempting to superplex the Giant off the turnbuckle. And then we have Scott and Rick, the Steiner brothers, go underneath the Brothers of Destruction and get them in the powerbomb position, and then powerbomb them. They pull the Brothers of Destruction off, powerbombing them into the canvas, meanwhile sending the Giant over, officially superplexing him off the ropes. And unfortunately for Albert, wrong place, wrong time, Albert gets caught in the crossfire, and taken out. So we got Giant hitting the mat, Undertaker and Kane hitting the mat, Steiner and Rick kind of hitting the mat. That's a lot of weight coming down on them. And then Albert, all that weight coming down on him. Good God, he might be dead. And that's just too much weight for the ring to hold, nerds and geeks. And the ring collapsed. For the first time in WWE history, I believe this would be as well. The ring collapsed. Everybody's in the rings just pretty much knocked out. And I mean, technically, this match should end. And even my brother kind of, pointed this out to me. But you can't really end the match. Even though it should be ended by knockout, everybody was kind of knocked out at the same time. The ring collapsed. Luckily, there's two rings, so we still have one ring. But the ring has collapsed. We have all 6 men, Taker, Kane, Giant, Steiner, both Steiners. That leaves Rick and Scott and Albert. All of them knocked out in the collapsed ring. Referees can't determine because, for one, we don't know who was knocked out first. And for two, there's an even amount of knocked out men, so you can't say, well, there's 3-2, so there you go. Either way, that leaves 4 men in the only ring that's remaining up, to be honest. And we got Triple H and RVD to represent Team WWF, and Chris Benoit and Ric Flair to represent Team WCW. The 4 stars, they're taking turns battling it out until finally RVD has Benoit down, and he looks to hit the 5-star frog splash. But Chris Benoit moves out of the way just in time, and then catching Rob Van Dam's arm in the progress while moving out of the way, and he locks in the crippler crossface. He has him locked in, and now RVD is there. He's holding on. He doesn't want to tap out. This isn't even his company he's defending, to be honest, so it would weigh heavy on his shoulders here, nerds and geeks. And now, not only that, but Chris Benoit's mentor, Ric Flair, locks in his figure 4 leg lock on Triple H. So now we got both Triple H and RVD, both the final members of Team WWF, locked in submission holds, but the game manages to turn the figure 4 on Ric Flair, putting the pressure on Flair. Now, I know Flair probably could just easily let go of this, but let's suspend our disbelief here for a second and imagine Flair is just in too much pain that he can't get out, or maybe Triple H just has him locked in a special way. Either way, Flair is stuck in the figure 4 leg lock. Benoit still has the crippler crossface locked out on RVD, who is really close to tapping. He's got his hand up, and Chris Benoit also notices that Ric Flair's hand is about to tap. Like, Flair's about to tap, he can't take it anymore, and Benoit lets one hand go, still leaving one arm on RVD, pretty much having him in a headlock now, not much a crossface either anymore. And he catches Ric Flair's hand before he taps out. So not only is Chris Benoit putting this pressure on RVD, trying to get him to tap out, but he's holding Flair's hand up and just praying to God that Flair doesn't use his other hand to tap out. And he's lucky because even though Flair looks like he's about to tap out, even more, Van Dam has to let go, and he taps out to the Crippler Cross headlock, earning WCW the victory and entry into the Royal Rumble, and saving them from death. So let's see how this match actually does. That's not bad. This match scared me a little bit, but that's not bad. An 86B+, not too shabby, and about that had great wrestling and good heat to it, nerds and geeks. As we already saw, Giant, Steiner, Flair, and Rick Steiner and Chris Benoit going over Taker, Van Dam, Kane, Albert, and Triple H in 25 minutes, 11 seconds after Chris Benoit defeats Rob Van Dam with the Crippler Crossface. Trish Stratus did some good work ringside. Albert's gimmick is getting stale. I thought we might have fixed that, but that's okay. Triple H and Stephanie have great chemistry. Giant was slow by his injury, which that's fine. Got the crowd hotter. Triple H with a 93. Albert with a 74. Kane with an 89. RVD with a 69, so it looks like RVD was the weakest right now. Taker with a 96, and Benoit with a 90. And Rick Steiner with a 73. Flair with a 94. Scott Steiner with an 88. And the Giant with an 86. So yeah, it looks like RVD with the weakest performance and the Undertaker with the strongest performance of the night. And there you have it, nerds and geeks. That ends off the show, as we also have Kane improving in performance, Benoit improving in performance, and Ric Flair improving in Rumble. Ending the show to get us an 88 B+ rating, increasing our popularity in 5 regions. What was our best match of the night? Definitely wasn't that match, that's for sure. 87. Wow. So I think I'm going to... Yeah, we're going to give a speech because Kurt Angle and Booker T actually did indeed put on the best... Actually, hold on. No, Rock and them put on 1 point better. So I'm going to tell Rock, Angle, and Lance Storm they did good because they all put on the best performances. And they won. Or should I do it to the losers? Well, who was the better in-ring? No, they were all the better in-ring performance, so let's compliment them all on a good performance. Because they were all the better in-ring performance in those matches as well. There we go. Make speech. The Rock was very happy with our speech. Kurt Angle seemed pleased, and Lance Storm seemed pleased as well. Not a bad pay-per-view there, guys. And WCW stays alive, so a lot of your fears has probably been ended, as it indeed looks like WCW is going to continue on. And apparently the show has been getting fantastic reviews. And also, Big Show's fully fit. Way to be fit after the pay-per-view. But that's fine. Heat also got broadcasted. Apparently all eyes are on Dustin Rhodes, as I see down here. If rumors are believed to be true, XPW are preparing a massive push for Dustin Rhodes, who they believe to be the next big thing in wrestling. Sure, XPW. I mean, it is Goldust, so it's not like he's bad. And Mark Sloan founding HWF, Historic Wrestling Forever. So good for Mark Sloan. I guess we'll have to keep an eye on that company. Alright, here we go. And I guess this kind of spoils it, but I don't care too much here, nerds and geeks. You guys, it was supposed to happen tonight, so here's a little bit of a spoiler for you guys. Mike Awesome's returned to the company, so that's good. As is Test. As is Goldberg. Giant's fully fit. And here's the spoiler for you guys, because it's there. Vampiro was also supposed to be here, as he's now officially left both CMLL and All Japan Pro Wrestling to join the WWF for the first time ever. Also, I don't need to join them, sorry. Jericho says, Jeff Hardy is going to be a star in my opinion. The kid is worth pushing hard. Scott Steiner says, Hugh Morris isn't charismatic. You should release him or hire someone better. Good lord, calm down. And those are the only opinions. So there we have it, nerds and geeks. That's going to be the end of this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, do me a favor. Leave me a comment, like, and subscribe if you haven't done already. And as always, my name has been OMG, WTF, LOL, FTW, BRB, and I will see you guys for Monday Night Raw as we move on in the last month of December, almost completing this full year, to the next pay-per-view, I believe, is Armageddon? Is that what's next? Yes, Armageddon. That's the December pay-per-view. So next up will be Armageddon in the pay-per-view as we start building up to that. So see you guys for Monday Night Raw. Have a great one, guys.